So I'm recording this knowing that I won't be able to edit it, which means it's going to have to go straight through and hopefully no mistakes. But this is PEP 158. It just came out of the press a little while ago. And I'm talking about the cold press. So it was in a hot press for 10 minutes and then about 4 hours. And then spent the last 2 days in a cold press. So things that I want to work on a little bit. There's a little bit of furnish up here on the yellow that I want to take off. And I'll do that later on. These are things that I'm going to do later on. And I did lose a little bit of color down here, a little bit up here. I kind of expected a lot more color loss than what I got. So that's not too bad. All of the cracks are sealed, everything is sealed. The additional furnish on the back really helped it out, makes it look a lot better. Same thing on the side. Now this stain did not come out, and there's some stains on the bottom here that didn't come out. And I'm not too worried about those. Overall, I'm very happy with the way it turned out. This is a little loose. I'll put a little methyl cellulose in there to glue it down, and that'll be fine. But let's take a look at the inside a little more carefully. And I didn't do anything to the inside really, but here's a few things that I wanted to point out. Number one, it was published in 1963. It's PEP number 158. Or, excuse me, 1962. And the pull date was October. Now I just saw here another piece of furnish that's loose. Again, I'll use some methyl cellulose on that and close it back up. That's not a big deal. What I want to talk about is the actual stories that are in this comic. We've got War is Swell, and it's an Archie, and the script was by Frank Doyle, and the artwork is Dan DeCarlo, inked by Rudy Lapik. Now Dan DeCarlo worked for Archie for a really long time, and before he worked for Archie, he worked for Atlas with Stan Lee, and he started comics in Timely. And he did like a 10-year run on Millie the Model, which is one of the reasons why I'd like to get some of those from the 50s. I really like Dan DeCarlo's artwork, always have. And that's, you know, he pretty much defined the way Archie looks during the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s. And he created 3 iconic characters that are in Archie. He created Sabrina, the Teenage Witch. He created Josie, like Josie and the Pussycats. Now, when he originally created Josie, he wasn't working for Archie. He created it to try to get it as a syndicated daily strip in the newspapers. He wasn't successful. So eventually he took it to Archie and said, hey, you know, what about this? And they said, yeah, sure, let's make a comic out of it. Now, in the late 2000s, or in the late 90s, he wanted credit for that. He wanted credit as you know, he created the character, and the name was actually after his wife, Josie. And he wanted to own the character, which is perfectly reasonable. And they went to court. And while he is listed as the creator of Josie and the Pussycats for the movie they did, the courts decided that Archie owned the copyrights to the character. Now, he tried to go back to court pointing out that he created the character before he ever worked for Archie. They weren't going to have it. They weren't having anything to do with it. So that's unfortunate that he didn't get to keep his character. And it created a rift between Archie Comics and the management and Dan DeCarlo, and they kind of pretty much just dropped him. They don't even talk about him. And he's so incredibly important to the Archie mythos and the Archie comic line. He drew Archie comics longer than anybody, but he doesn't get credit. The second story is Reggie No Escape, and it's a 2-page story, so this is the whole thing right here. And the artwork is by Bill Vigoda with inks by Terry Zenics, Zenics. I don't know who did the letters on any of these except for the first story that Dan DiCarlo worked on. The lettering was done by Vincent DiCarlo. I don't know if there's a relation there or not. Probably is, but I'm not going to count on it. And this is a 2-page story. And like I said, Bill Vigoda and Terry Zenics. The next one we have is Fly Girl. And this is The Face of Fear, and it's a Fly Girl story. The story was written by Robert Bernstein, and the artwork is by John Giunta, Giunta. And again, nice artwork. And it's not your typical Archie style. It's closer to the 40s and 50s style artwork that we saw for Good Girl Art. So, yeah, I like that. I like the way it turned out. I like the story. Now, this is just a piece of tissue paper. I'm out of interleave paper, so I just have some tissue paper I'm putting in there. I'm supposed to have some more interleave paper tomorrow or the next day. And so that's kind of a cool story. And I like to put interleave paper in the center of the comics that I've pressed. It's just something I do. I don't always do that for comics that are going to somebody else. For my own. The next story is a Little Jinx story. Now that was a 6-page Fly Girl story, by the way. And it was scripted, drawn, and lettered by Joe Edwards. And Joe Edwards is a really good letterer. People don't give enough credit to letterers, I think. So that was the next story. And it was 4 1/3 pages. And it was called Fit Mess. Physical Fit Mess, Little Jinx. Then we have the letters page, of course. And finally, another Archie story. This is a 5-page story called Just Imagine, and written by Frank Doyle, and the artwork was by Bob White. And I don't know who did the lettering on this one. Most of this information I got from the Grand Comics database. So that's a good resource if you need it, and I highly recommend it. Some people say, no, they make mistakes. Well, everybody makes mistakes, so that's not a big deal. And then finally you can see the last of it and the back cover. And that is my Archie, or my PEP comic number 158 right now. It's one of the better ones I've done. Let's go ahead and put it in a bag and board. I may revisit this a little bit later. I may do a little more work to it. I am debating it. I will be working on this and those 2 loose areas that I saw. So, there you go, PEP 158. All done. I thought you guys deserved a some closure on this one, even if I couldn't edit it. And it's going to take longer to get that computer up and running than I expected, because I got to thinking, if the thermopaste on the graphics card is dry, and I put that in 4 or 5 years ago, what does the thermopaste on the CPU look like? So I went ahead and popped the cooler off the CPU, and it just fell off in my hands. Its thermopaste is so dry it isn't funny. I'm surprised that computer runs at all. So I will be I'll be fixing that as well. I went ahead and ordered some thermal paste. It's not going to be here till Saturday or Monday. So it's going to be a while before I can edit any more videos. But I thought I'd go ahead and give you a closure on this one. That's going to be it for this. Thank you. Bye.